Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. My name is Anthony Mills, and this is our January 2023 GI&I webinar. As most of you know, GI&I, or Global Innovation Institute, is the world's leading professional certification, business accreditation, and membership association in the field of innovation. And we are working tirelessly all the time to really promote every facet of innovation, whether it's getting to know and understand our customers and their needs and unmet needs and figuring out innovative solutions, to actually being able to connect our solutions with our customers in a way that resonates with them and resonates with their needs. So every facet of innovation, of being innovators, of being innovative organizations, we really try to address that. And we do this on a monthly basis to add value to the knowledge base of innovation that we present. So with that, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker today who will be with us. And after I introduce her, I'll turn it over to her. So our guest today is Miss Orly Zeewy, brand architect. Orly is an author, speaker, and your facilitator of lightbulb moments. Her superpower: she makes fuzzy clear. She turns generic messaging into clear marketing messages that help startups and early stage companies cut through the noise so they can attract their ideal customers and scale fast. In addition to her consulting work, Orly is a popular speaker and guest on business podcasts. She has been interviewed on more than a dozen business podcasts, including Help My Business Is Growing, CEO on the Go, This Week with Sabir, and Angel Invest Boston with Sal Dehar. She has lectured at Wharton and taught in the Close School of Entrepreneurship at Drexel University, at the University of Pennsylvania, and several other notable universities. She's currently teaching at Jefferson University in Philadelphia. Orly has been featured in Medium, and her articles have been published in national publications such as The Marketing Journal, Smart Hustle, and Lioness Magazine. Her book, Ready Launch Brand, The Lean Marketing Guide for Startups, was published by Routledge in May 2021 and was the #1 business book release on Amazon in April of that year. Orly holds a bachelor's degree in graphic design from the University of Cincinnati and an MBA from Thomas Jefferson University. And so with that, I want to turn it over to Orly, who will be talking to us today about making your fuzzy clear. Please join me now, if you will, in welcoming Miss Orly Zeewy. Orly, the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to see a couple people I know up there. Thank you. Hi, Julia. So today I'm actually really looking forward to chatting with you today. So I am going to just get started here, and let me share my screen, and let me do this, and let me view as slideshow. Whoops. So don't look behind the curtain. All right. So I've already asked those of you who are just joining now, if you would please put in your name, location, where you're calling from, where you're joining us from, and one takeaway you hope to get from today's webinar. And then at the end, I'll be taking a look at that, and hopefully I will have answered some of these questions. So let's get started here. Hopefully, there we go. All right, so today, my talk is really on the case for making fuzzy clear. So I know, it sounds kind of fun to say making fuzzy clear, but what does that actually mean? So we're going to get to that. But first, I want to share with you some statistics. And part of why I do that is because I like us to all be on the same page as we're having this conversation. So the first thing is I want you to understand the space that we are all in, which, and I apologize, I only have the American stat. I do not know, but if you think about if this is just in America, that we are being exposed to somewhere between 12 to 15,000 messages a day, you can imagine how many messages are being exchanged throughout the world. Just to put that in perspective, 12,000 messages a day translates to nearly 4 million messages a year. To put that statistic in perspective, in 1985, so roughly 40 years ago, that number was 1,500. And of course, that's due to the advent of technology and the growth of technology. And but that's an increase of nearly 1,000%. So it's understandable why we all feel like we're standing in the middle of Times Square. It's a noisy world, and it's really hard to stand out because you are competing with thousands and thousands of messages that your clients are seeing. They're not seeing you in a vacuum. And that's the piece that I think is hard for people to really wrap their head around. So we're going to take a look at another statistic, which is around startup failure. And everybody knows that it's hard to launch a company and also launch a new product. But here are some statistics for us to kind of consider. So 20% of startups fail by year 2. By year 5, that number is 50%. So in other words, by the time a startup gets to 5 years, 7 out of 10 will have failed. So the good news, though, is if you can get to year 5, then the stats, the statistics are more in your favor as we get further out. But it's those first 5 years that are really critical. So now we're going to do, so now I want to ask you a question, and Anthony, hopefully you're still on this call and I'd like you to put up the poll. The poll is, the question I'm asking is, what's the number one reason that startups and new products fail? So Anthony, if you're there, hopefully you can.
Yep, I'm going to launch it now. Here we go.
And then I'm going to ask everyone to just put in, or you can only answer one question. So we'll give you a few minutes here to fill that out. It's always fun to kind of see this coming in.
I see some answers coming in.
Yep, me too. Okay. Interesting. All right. Give it a couple more minutes here as things are changing. Here we go. All right. So this is good. So we have a pretty good participation rate here. So so interesting that that lost focus seems to be in neck and neck with no market need, but the actual answer is let me close the poll. Oh no, it looks like lost focus is catching up here. Oh, there's still a few coming in. Interesting. All right. So the answer actually is no market need. And the reason that no market need is so critical is because if no one wants what you are selling, no amount of resources is going to change something that is not actually something that people want. They're not going to buy something that they don't need. And so it's very interesting to me that people often think, oh, we're just going to put something out there and someone will buy it, right? But you can't scale based on that. You have to have something that's scalable. And as you may know, startups are all about scaling, right? Because you cannot build a startup if you don't have the ability to scale it, to get more customers. But in the beginning, you need to figure out who those early adopters are. Where is that need? And are you fulfilling that need? By the way, running out of cash is the number 3 reason that startups fail. And number 2 is the wrong team. So, and to me, no market need and running out of cash seem to, they're perfectly aligned, because obviously if there's no market need, then you're not going to get customers. But the other piece of this, the running out of cash, which is not the same as not having revenue. So you can actually have revenue, but it's out there. It's not actually in your pocket, right? And so running out of cash is something that, a lot of startups don't realize how much cash they need to have in hand before they launch. So, again, it's a noisy world. How do you stand out, right? Yeah, this is so interesting. Okay, so there are two questions that I want you to think about right now. And these are really the two questions that start this whole conversation. And the first one is, who are you? I'm having some issues with my mouse. I don't know why. It's like it works and then it doesn't work. So I apologize. That's my question. Why does technology never work the way you want it to? So anyway, who are you? Obviously, who are you as a brand? Because if you don't know who you are, how are you going to convince someone else to buy it, right? You have to understand who you are. And that means you need a value proposition. Now, most of you, if I'm assuming everyone's heard of value proposition, right? Has anybody not heard of a value proposition? I think everybody at least has heard the words. What's interesting to me is, people hear the word, but they don't really know what it means. And it's really about what makes you different than your competition. And when I say focus on one point of difference, that is because, remember, we're all standing in the middle of Times Square. No one has the time or the inclination to figure out what are all these things that you do. We want to know what this one thing that's going to make me go, yeah, this is something I really need. This is something that's meaningful to me. And remember, in the metaverse, you have seconds, right, to be able to cut through that noise. You do not, it's not like you have in the old days before technology. You had weeks, maybe even months to sort of, look at things and digest them. And that's no longer the case. In fact, another statistic that I often share is that in 2000, the average adult's attention span was 12 seconds. Today, it is 8 seconds. And I also like to share, this is probably an urban myth, but the average goldfish attention span is 9 seconds. Whether or not it's true, it just feels true. So anyway, this just is to say that we are not very good at staying on focus. So speaking of focus on the why, not the what. That's because we don't really care what you do or how you do it. We care on why it matters to us. So the why is critical to being able to make your fuzzy clear. So my why, just to give you an example, is, I help B2B companies cut through the noise so their ideal clients can find them, buy them, and refer them. That's my why. I don't talk about how I do that. I don't talk about, what's happened or, I don't go into details, because unless you care about this, you are not really going to care about the details. So in the chat, I'd love for people to put in their why, if you would. Just really basically who you help, and what they get. I'm just going to take a couple of examples, if you could. I mean, if you want, you can also unmute yourself, if that's easier. So Anthony, thank you for putting something in the chat. Help business organizations develop innovation capabilities and apply them effectively, impactfully. So thank you for this, because this is a great jumping off point for what we're going to do at the end of my presentation, where we're going to actually look at your elevator pitch, and I'm going to help you switch your pitch. So more on that later. So Eric, customers unlocking efficiency and cost savings in a gas utility. Okay. Barbara, work for nonprofit that helps military vets with financial hardships. Goal to get corporate clients to contribute. Used to work for larger, so trying to bridge that. Great. I mean, and again, part of what we're gonna talk about, I'm gonna walk you through how to actually build an elevator pitch, the building blocks of that. Part of what's critical, remember, I don't have time to figure this out, right? So what you want to think about, and I don't want to switch your pitch now because I want to do this at the end, but you're going to see, again, I'm going to kind of walk you through that so you'll be able to see it. Thank you guys. I appreciate that. Okay. So the second question, right? We have two questions. Who are you and who are they? And obviously when I say they, I mean your clients. And that's because if you talk to everyone, you engage with no one. This is something that's hard for people to understand, because what I find working with clients is the first step is for them to say, but I'm leaving people out. And what about these people? I can help everybody. When I taught in the Close School of Entrepreneurship at Drexel, I was working with students who were coming up with ideas for startups. And the thing that was the hardest for me to help them understand is that they literally could, even if they could help everyone, unless you have the resources, how are you going to market to everyone? Everyone is too big. And also looking at everyone means it gets harder. It's harder to focus on one. A kind of famous quote from Mark Twain, who said, if I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter. It's kind of like that, right? You need to really focus. And I know this is hard because you think, oh my gosh, I'm leaving somebody out, which is why you want to start with who am I? Because you need to align those two things together. So again, generic versus targeted. So here's what I could say about who I am. I'm a brand consultant. You're right. I mean, consultant. I don't think there is a more generic word now than consultant. And a lot of people don't even know what brand means. So when I say I'm a brand consultant, that doesn't help people understand what I'm really offering them. So instead, the targeted version of that, which you will find, by the way, on my LinkedIn profile, is that I'm your facilitator of lightbulb moments. And Anthony has already mentioned all of that, but I want to put it in context, right? Because when I say I'm your facilitator of lightbulb moments, I get one or two reactions. Either somebody says, wow, tell me more about that, right? What is that? That sounds really interesting. Or I get the like deer in headlight, no response. Like, what do you mean by that, right? So part of what you're going to see is when you make your fuzzy clear, you're going to be able to very quickly identify who actually needs this. And if they don't connect with what you're saying, you're probably not going to work with them. And which is a fabulous thing, because it saves you months of chasing people who ultimately are not going to value what you offer. And so that for me is like one of the things that I've spent 30 years on this. So I had a lot of time to think about this. And what I find is, when I say this and I get no response, that's where I stop. I don't go further, because why would I? If this doesn't intrigue them, then there's no point in moving forward. And all of you can do the same thing. I'm going to show you how. All right, the cost of fuzzy. This is so up till now, this is kind of a theoretical conversation, but it turns out it's actually expensive. That unclear messaging actually costs us money. How much money? $37 billion a year worldwide. And that includes lost sales opportunities. Remember, if I can't find you, I can't buy from you. So part of what you want to think about is there is a real cost to this. And so the clearer you can be, the more targeted you are, the more you understand. And this, by the way, means that you have to do the research, right? Because sometimes we think we know who wants what we are selling or what we're offering, but it turns out those are not really our clients. And in fact, when I wrote my book, I interviewed 25 entrepreneurs, and one of the stories that made it into my book was one about exactly this, the market need issue. One of the founders I spoke with, they spent years and millions of dollars messaging around the wrong thing to the wrong client. And by the time they figured it out, it was too late and they closed their company. It wasn't like they didn't have something that worked, but they weren't able to scale. And remember, with companies, the goal is to scale, because that's how you can grow and become a sustainable company. So how do we make fuzzy clear? And so I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna talk about a few different things here. For time purposes, I want to leave enough time at the end so we can do the elevator pitches, the switch to pitch. So let me walk you through kind of hit on three things. The first one is clarify your value, right? We already talked about that. And it's interesting because the thing that I have spent really my entire career doing is figuring out the sequence. And the first step is you need to clarify your value. You need to know who you are and why it matters. And the goal of that is a clear, concise elevator pitch. And by the way, an elevator pitch is not a sales pitch. And I'm going to talk about that in a moment. So clear, concise elevator pitch, because again, we're all standing in the middle of Times Square and we don't have time to figure this out. And really the answer that you want people to get, and of course, they're not going to say this, but this is how it's going to come across. Why you? Why you and not someone else? Why you? The second is authentic engagement. Now we hear a lot about engagement. And in fact, I'm going to stop here for a second and see what does the word engagement mean to you? Just real quickly, just want to see, just a few people can put in the chat. What does that mean? And what does authentic engagement mean? Exactly. Building a community, especially because we're all virtual now, having a sense of community helps me to it's not just about what you're selling, but what I get that's bigger even than you. And in your case, Anthony, I mean, it's all about community, right? And that's why you have speakers. That's why you try to bring value to people, because it's part of being a member of this community. Yeah, Barbara, true and sincere connection on core values. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So authentic engagement, and what does that look like? It means that you don't speak at your customers, you speak with them. Now, the first step to authentic engagement is you need to figure out who they are, right? Because everybody is not a perfect fit for what you're doing. So you need to figure that out first, and then figure out where they go. Where do your customers, I mean, now we're all virtual. So, this is where we spend, I mean, we have 1.5 billion people, active monthly users on Facebook. And I believe YouTube also is close to 2 billion monthly users. That's a lot of people. And not your clients have a place where they go. And because I'm in the B2B space, where I spend my time is on LinkedIn, because that's where my clients are. And in fact, 8 out of 10 business leads are coming from LinkedIn. So that is the place to gather. There's also something like 390 million active users on LinkedIn. 4 out of 5 are decision makers. Every Fortune 500 company is on LinkedIn. Those are pretty, so this is also why you need to know the data and have the data help you make that decision. So data is actually very important. We don't have time to talk about that specifically, but anyway, so that's number 2. Number 3 is don't sell me. Remember how I said an elevator pitch is not a sales pitch? What you want to remember is everyone wants to buy, but no one wants to be sold. Don't sell me. Don't sell me. Lead me to your solution, not with your solution. So if you think about it, what that translates to is that I want to know, I mean, eventually I may decide to buy whatever your service or product is, but to do that, I need to first, you need to build trust. This is especially true when you're a startup and you don't have a track record, which is why I always tell startups, don't spend any money on advertising. Advertising is for established companies to remind us that you're still here and here are all the great things you're doing. A startup can't, first of all, advertising is prohibitively expensive for startups. So there's no point in doing it anyway. And it's not the way that you build awareness, right? Because your goal, and this is true whether you're a startup or launching a new product, you need brand awareness. You need for people to know who you are, what you do, why it matters to them, and it needs to fit with a problem that they are actually struggling with. So it's not that you don't want to talk about your solution, but not in the beginning, right? So a sales pitch is all about what and the how. An elevator pitch is all about the why you, why I need you, if I am in fact your ideal client. That's why it's so important to align who you are with who they are, because that's how you break through the fuzzy. That's how you get clear. All right, so the elevator pitch helps clarify your why. That's why it's the first step, right? The first step is, I have an elevator pitch that kills every single time. It helps me figure out, am I talking to the right person? Do they understand the why here? Do they see the benefit? And the goal is to have someone say, tell me more. Remember, we are humans. We are curious. We like to have, we don't want everything told to us up front, because you want to have people work for it. It's the same thing on a website, by the way. You don't want to tell everything up front. What you want is to build a website that encourages people to click, because clicking is engagement. This is something that people may not realize, that the more, and this is why you want to have some way to capture the visits and how long people spend and where they go. That's really useful and important information. But what happens is, the more engaged I become, the more I'm committing to having a conversation with you. So that's why you don't want to be selling. You want to lead me to your solution, and you want to help me discover, so that I feel like I've landed somewhere that's really something I want to learn more from. And then, of course, you always want to have call to action, right? So you want people to reach out to you, but not at the very beginning, not until I understand what I'm doing here. So let's, I'm going to review the, I don't know what's happening here. I don't know why it's doing that. Anyway, technology, I know. Thank you for your patience, because I'm struggling with some of these tech issues. So let's talk about the elevator pitch building blocks. There are three building blocks. The first is make me curious. Remember, we are human beings. Human beings are, by our very nature, we are curious. And so when you can pique my interest, that starts that engagement process. So make me curious. How do you do that? Use statistics, ask a question. The second is identify a problem, a real problem. And by the way, not your problem, but for your clients, obviously, right? But a lot of times I know when I've been in networking situations or online and we have a breakout and people start talking about, their story and how they started the company and why they're so excited about what they're doing. That doesn't help me understand your why. That's really about you. And that still feels like you're selling. And the third one is be the solution. We assume that if you've identified a real problem that I'm struggling with, be the solution to that problem. Obviously, again, for your client's problem, not yours. So I'm going to walk you through my elevator pitch. And then, as I said, we're gonna have a breakout in terms of doing the pitch. And this is something, Anthony, we can talk about, is whether or not we want to do breakout rooms. But anyway, let's look at just as an example. Here's my elevator pitch. Make me curious, right? That's the first step. So you've already heard my pitch. We're being messaged at the rate of 12,000 messages a day, which translates to more than 4 million a year. And here's the question: are you cutting through the noise? Right? So what I've done is this is kind of the pre-pitch, right? I want to get everybody on the same page, so you understand the conversation we're about to have is built around this knowledge, right? That here's what we're looking at. It's really noisy. Are you cutting through the noise? So at this point, someone is either asking themselves, what is she talking about? Or they're asking themselves, am I really cutting through? Gosh, I didn't realize it was that noisy. What am I doing? Do I know what I'm doing to do that? And that's when I really focus on the problem. So, and it's a problem I've spent many, many years really delving into that. And I find that is actually true, that this is the problem. The problem is generic messaging speaks to no one and makes you invisible to your ideal customer. Now, I've just told you that you need to cut through the noise to be heard, that you're up against thousands of daily messages. And now I'm telling you that the kind of messaging that most of you have probably done over the years is making you invisible. Now, I'm not going to leave you there, right? I'm going to say, okay, but now that you know that this is a real problem, how am I the solution? Be the solution. I make fuzzy clear. Now, all of a sudden, I make fuzzy clear means something, because it's in the context of, I need to cut through the noise and I need to do it fast because I don't have a lot of time. I turn generic messaging into clear marketing messages that attract your ideal customers so they can find you, buy you, and refer you. For me, that is the triple threat. Now, it's not just about finding you and buying you, but if I can't find you, I can't refer you. And that's part of that $37 billion of missed sales opportunities. That's from this, because it's not just that they can't find you to buy your services, but what if they know 10 people who actually could use this? Now you've lost that opportunity. So I'm going to show you so once you have the elevator pitch, obviously it's not over. That's not the end of the fuzzy to clear. You need to then integrate that into something meaningful, right? There needs to be some outcome. And so I'm going to show you 3 home pages. The first one, I'm going to show you the before and after to demonstrate what I mean by generic, like fuzzy to clear, and generic and targeted. Okay. So this is a company that says Weisswood Strategies. Now, remember, consultant strategy, those are all very generic terms. And the focus here, remember I just said to you how important it was to focus on the why, but everything on this page, it's all about the what. And what's interesting is to the right, they're so excited about their story that's what they were leading with. They were leading with how they came up with the name. Do I care about how they came up with the name? Not at this point, right? The 2 things, when somebody lands on your homepage, there's 2 things, 2 questions that you need to answer, and you have 6 seconds to do it. Why am I here? And why should I care? If you cannot answer those 2 questions, I leave, I don't come back, and I tell no one. So this is what she had before our rebrand process. And by the way, you see how it says here, meet us and our team. Why would you want it? Why is that a call to action when I don't even know what this is, right? And if it actually means something to me. So this is the generic version, and here's the targeted version. We speak the language of fundraising. There's really, after part of the process that I use with my clients is to get to who are we, right? Who are we and who are they? And what is the problem? The problem is I work with, so they work with nonprofits and universities, right? Because those are the ones that live and die by fundraising. And what's interesting is after we had our conversation and we went through the exercises, it turns out that fundraising is really their sweet spot. And since then, by the way, they're global. So their client base is international, which is why you see here the word hello in all these different languages. And again, this is all that was on the homepage, right? Because until I care about the why, I don't care about the what and the how. So, and feel free to put questions in the chat. So as we're going along, because I will stop before we do the exercise, and I'm happy to answer any questions. So the second one is, this is a summer day camp in northeastern Pennsylvania. This is actually the association. Now, what you'll notice is, yes, there is a picture, and I think that picture does change. So you see different kids doing different things. But what's interesting for me, and this is, again, part of the whole rebrand of really understanding, I literally read dozens of letters from former campers who talked about how this experience changed their life, made them a better person, a better parent, a better employee, a better human. And so for me, this idea of the impact, and by the way, one of the things they said to me is, well, doesn't every summer camp do that? I said, yeah, but they don't message on that, right? So it doesn't matter if other people do it too. The point is that you can claim that spot for yourself. And the reason they can say this, by the way, 28,000 children every summer, they've been around since the 1950s. So you do the math, right? That's a lot of impact. So again, if they had just started like 5 minutes before we worked together, that is not what we wouldn't have focused on that. So again, it's understanding your one point of difference. We have had an impact on thousands and thousands of children who have written to us about that impact. And then ultimately, this is why we're here: better kids, better adults for a better world. I know, and you know, it's again, I had to kind of convince them, right? Because they were like, well, everyone does the same thing. Okay, but do you know anyone else who's messaging this way? And that's what you need to remember. It's got to be authentic, though. It's got to be authentic to you, because if you have not been doing this since the 1950s, you can't say these things. But if it's true, then that, you know, it's very hard to copy something that's true to you, because how can somebody open up a summer day camp and compete with that when they haven't been around since the 1950s? So the last one I'm going to show you, it's actually a series. There's 5 banner images that I'm going to walk you through. And what's interesting about this, so all this messaging, you know, this is all part of the whole rebrand process, is to really understand, again, what is our why? The first step is always to understand what is keeping up our clients up at night. And so the first banner is, we live in a world of perpetual change. How can you argue with that, right? I mean, does everybody know Alvin Toffler and his book Future Shock, right? Yeah, he said in the 1970s, he said, today is the most change you're ever going to see the rest of your life. He also said that in the 20th century, we will have 100 years of change. And in the 21st century, we will have, I don't know, 2,000 years of change, something like that. And he literally saw this in the 1970s. I don't know why he's not better known and better, you know, respected, because here's a guy who basically told us what our future was going to be. And it's amazing, because we've only been, you know, the 21st century is only 23 years old, and we've already had probably 1,000 years of change, right? And there's the technology now with AI and chatbots and all this other stuff going on. Anyway, so the second one is, change is disruptive and wastes time and money. That shows me that you understand the cost of my problem, right? The cost of, so we state the problem, then we show that we understand that it is costing you time and money. And then we talk about what we do. We teach leaders how to thrive during change. Wouldn't you want to talk, at this point, wouldn't you want to talk to this guy if he can help you thrive during change? Everyone understands it's not about the new technologies. How do I integrate this new technology into an existing organization when I have a complex organization and lots of people who depend on, you know, getting clarity around this? And then, of course, it's the why, because systems don't change organizations, people do. So it's all about the why we do this, why you might want to work with us. You know, we understand who you are and what you're struggling with. And then the last piece is their process: empathy, collaboration, transformation. Because what I discovered during the branding process is that their aspirational brand, their kind of where they really are in the world, is around design thinking. And the design thinking process starts with empathy. Then it's all about collaboration to come up with solutions. And then, of course, there's, you know, creating an MVP and, you know, creating all, you know, kind of doing the circular, we test it, we fix it, we change it, we retest it. And the end is there's a transformation, because without transformation, it's all very nice, but it doesn't really help me. Okay, so now I'm gonna stop here, and I'm gonna take questions. So I'm going to open up the floor here. And if you'd like, please, you can also unmute yourself and ask me the question. And then we'll have, I guess, then we'll have about, I want to give ourselves 15 minutes, right? Because we're at like 20 of, so I just want to be aware of the time. But yes, so yeah. This is great. Yes.
So Orly, there's a question over on the LinkedIn Live side.
Yes.
This question comes from Ismail Zanona. He wants to know, what is the role and value of a real and effective digital presence in terms of driving global fame and success of the startup? So it's all about the digital presence. What's the role of that?
Right. Well, it's an excellent question. And what I would say is that it's critical, right? It's absolutely critical. But here's where things go wrong quickly. You need to be consistent, and your digital presence needs to be connected to everything else you do, because it's about, so for those of you who don't know, and I didn't start out with an explanation, but a brand is literally every touch point that your customer goes through to learn about you. So what happens, remember, we're trying to make fuzzy clear. So the more, the more disjointed your messaging is, if your LinkedIn profile looks nothing like your website, if your blogs have nothing to do with the content that you really talk about on your website, or and you can do this also visually as well as with so when I talk about content, I mean both visual and textual. But the thing about a digital presence is it's also very unforgiving. So if you make a mistake, that mistake lives forever. So my suggestion is to only find one platform and take really ownership of that platform. That's why you really want to know where your clients live, so that you can engage with them in a place that they spend a lot of time. I think what people also forget is your digital presence is also building awareness. So if you're building awareness, what the goal of building awareness is to build brand loyalty, which ultimately results into building brand equity, which is the value of your brand. So when it comes time, if you have, if you end up being acquired or selling the company, it goes to the actual value of your brand, and it becomes very important. So I don't know, did I answer the question? Was there something else?
Yeah, I think so. And I think to elaborate on that, you said pick one platform. So for example, if you work B2B, if you serve business clients, not individuals, then maybe your focus would be on projecting a heavier presence on LinkedIn versus Facebook, whereas if you're focused on the general public, maybe you're focusing on Facebook. Is that sort of your point?
Yes, but I need to add a caveat here.
Okay.
There's also age groups. So I don't talk about TikTok because my clients don't hang out on TikTok. But if you're a B2C consumer brand, TikTok is a hugely valuable tool. And so is Clubhouse. I mean, Clubhouse is another one that I don't talk a lot about, but that's both for the B2C and also the B2B. Before the whole Twitter meltdown, I would have said Twitter is a great place if you're an author, speaker, thought leader. And in fact, that is how I built my book around tweets. Like I started just kind of sending things out on Twitter to see what kind of response I got. And that's the other piece of building a digital presence. It gives you a way to very quickly and very effectively find out if what you're saying is landing and has an impact.
Barbara had made a comment here about their social media engagement. If you see that.
Yeah, Barbara, did you want to talk more to that?
I'm talking to our internal team. My company's about 130 people, and I came from a company that was over 100,000 people. So it's a little bit disconcerting for me to learn to navigate that. But if we want to drive engagement, I think it's nice to do something other than we need money, and then here's what we do with the money. Exactly. So for example, like Women's History Month is in March. So there's a lot of women who served in the military and did things historically in the military. Could we be posting things about, hey, look at all these cool things women in history have done, to create engagement, to give people a reason to come back to us? But the people I work with are, well, that doesn't fit with asking for money and then saying what you did with the money. So I'm trying to show the value, if that's a good approach. So
no, you know what, that's such a first of all, a great question, and also a very real problem that people have within organizations, because it's all well and good to say all this stuff, but unless you have an organization that understands that this is that you're playing the long game, it's a marathon, not a sprint. People tend to be very short-sighted. And they're like, oh, we're going to miss our opportunity if we don't ask for money now, right? But here's the thing, as money becomes more scarce, especially for nonprofits, who do you give money to? Do you give it to the people who just are always asking for money, or do you give it to the people who have shown and demonstrated their value over time? So perhaps the way that what I would suggest is that the way you could approach that is to show examples of nonprofits who have done exactly that. And in fact, I could put you in touch with my former client who speaks the language of fundraising because they're so fabulous. But anyway, I'm just saying, right? It's like there's all kinds of case studies. This is what I would do. I would arm myself with data, with case studies. Then it's not you saying it. It's other people who have successfully done what you're suggesting your organization does now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Barbara. All right. So yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask a question myself. So, I think 7 or 8 years ago, we heard a lot of talk about content marketing, really pumping out content to build the community. In your experience, is that still as valid as before, or more or less? Comment on that.
It's still valuable. The problem is it's not just content for content's sake. I forget the numbers, but we are creating just a mind-boggling amount of content, like billions and billions of stuff, and the problem is most of that stuff we don't really care about. Like, do we really need to see more pictures of your brunch plate, from last weekend with your kids? No, we don't. That's content also. So what you need, that's why you need to answer those, the who and the who are they and who are we, because to me, that's like giving me kind of a line that says, this is where I live. I do not move from this line, because if I do, then I start to create fuzzy understanding about who I am again. So I have a question here, Giacomo, in the Spagnoletti example. That's actually a really good question. Why is it best saying I teach how to instead of learn how to? Because it's a really fine point. And by the way, it's one that we went back and forth on quite a bit on that one. It's because they are not doing it, right? They're teaching. And the reason it's teaching is because then those leaders teach other people. So it doesn't end with the leader, right? It's the idea is that you want the leaders then to pick up that ball and then teach the C-suite executives to then teach those managers. And now it becomes, right, because when you say learn how, it sounds like it stops with the leader, but it doesn't. Does that answer your question? Hopefully, yes. Okay, so we are quickly running out of time, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time because I know we have a hard stop. So so in terms of what's your pitch, and these are, I just want to tell you, so these are the 3 questions that, and I think we have time. Oh, you're welcome, Giacomo. We have 10 minutes. So I think we have time for maybe 1 or 2. So here's what I need you how I need you to craft this. What problem are you solving? Who needs your solution? And what result can they expect? So like in my example, right? I help B2B companies cut through the noise. Why? So that they can attract their ideal customers who then can find them, buy them, and refer them. So something that kind of takes you. So those of you who already put your and I'm thinking, maybe Anthony, I know, let's see, I'm just looking to see. So Anthony, maybe I can, I don't know. I feel like I want to get one other person before I talk to you, but Nora, you have creating a positive impact in the aviation industry when it comes. Now, I do not know what CX is. I know what UX is. Nora, can you unmute yourself and put yourself on video if you can? Otherwise, just unmute yourself so we can chat. You have here, let's see.
The CX, by the way, is customer experience.
Okay, that's what I thought. Right. Yes. Yeah. I don't think I've seen it as CX recently, and I got confused for a second. Okay, so
I don't know if Nora she might have stepped out.
Okay, so you know what? Let me move on to someone else then. So I had Clifton, this is interesting. So create curiosity and permission to engage. Okay, so I'm going to come back to you because this is such a quick statement, but or is he gone also? I don't see him up here. I don't know if he's no longer with us. Oh. All right. Well, all right. So Barbara, I see. So wait. Barbara, where are you? Can you unmute yourself?
Sure.
So now that you know the kind of three parts of that, can you try to rework what you just said here?
So the problem I'm trying to solve with our social media is increasing engagement.
Okay, but is now, but see, that's your problem.
Okay,
You see
not
the
the company.
difference?
Yeah.
That's your problem. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
what is, so when you say that so military vets with financial hardships, okay, I understand that. So
Mhm.
is it that you are helping and you're helping vets do what? Get financial support, feed their families? Like, can you
Yes,
give me something
we give
know?
away homes, cars, and we do critical financial assistance.
Great.
So,
So what is
yeah.
all that? But what is that? Again, we're trying to keep it really short.
Sure.
So what I'm hearing is that you're helping vets live, have a sustainable life, right? Having a
Yes.
better
Yes.
living
Yeah.
experience or better life, or right. And so
Yeah.
you don't have to tell me all the what's, right? You just need to
Mhm.
say, what's the one thing? Like, people come to you because they're struggling, and what they
Right.
need is to improve their quality of life.
Mhm.
Could you say that our organization, and you could say the name, right? Our organization helps military vets improve their quality of life,
Mhm.
right? That's what you do for them.
Yes. Yes.
And then the other piece of this is to get corporate clients to contribute. But here's the thing, why would they contribute? How do you actually do this? Do you have stats? Could you share some statistics about how many vets have you helped over the last, I don't know how many years you're, see what I'm
20.
saying?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
instead of
Yes,
asking for help from corporations, show them why they should.
Right. And we're targeting a lot of corporations that have veterans in their leadership teams, because then they
Right.
and veterans in their own organization. So it's, helping their comrades, so to speak. So
So if I'm getting this right, what you're really doing is that you work, you help corporations or companies who have vets, like companies that hire vets. Is it that they're hiring vets?
right.
Right? So companies that hire vets. So it's like you're improving the quality of life of vets within companies that hire them, so that they can be more successful, right? So it's like helping them, it's like paying it forward. Is that, am I getting, am I
Yes.
getting it right? Because I
Yes.
don't want to
Yes.
put words in your mouth.
It's a lot of paying forward. Yes.
Oh, yeah, of course it is, right? And so what happens is that, we get so focused on the things we need, like you
Right.
said, right? We want the money. Well, sure, of course you do, right? Of
Yes.
course you do. Anyway, I hope that was helpful. I know we're just about out of time here, and I just wanted to kind of give you some information here. Oh, you're so welcome, Barbara. Thank you. So here's, if you want to order my book, this is the link to Amazon, and would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. Here are the QR codes. So you can actually just literally go right on the codes, and it'll take you to both my book and to my LinkedIn profile. Make sure you mention Global Innovation Institute so I know where your invite came from. And I would be really happy to connect with you. And yes, you can absolutely also go on my website. You can schedule time with me. What I prefer to do is, because I'm more about engagement also, I try to also live what I preach, which is connect with me let's set up a time to have a conversation. But, I want to give you an opportunity to also take a look at my profile, look at my website, and then, maybe we can be happy to schedule a discovery session if it makes sense.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Orly. It's incredibly insightful,
Thank you.
new insight about really getting very specific and getting away from the fuzzy and getting very clear and specific about our why, and really connecting and resonating with our customers with the innovation, the value we're trying to deliver, before we get into the what and the how and so forth. So thank you so much for that. I think the audience here has been very thankful for that, and a lot of great comments. So with that, I want to thank Orly, and I want to thank everyone who attended with us today. And for those who will be watching this as a recording afterwards, thank you again. Feel free to reach out to Orly for more on what she does, and feel free to connect with us at Global Innovation Institute about our programs and what we do. And so with that, we'll call it a wrap, and we'll see you all next month. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you so much. It was lovely. And thank you so much for your comments. Really appreciate it, hearing your thoughts. Thanks for having me.
Goodbye, everyone. Have a great night.